Welcome to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast, the show designed to serve you up evidence-based sports nutrition advice from the experts. Hi, I'm your host Taryn, accredited practicing dietitian, advanced sports dietitian, and founder of Dietitian Approved. Listen as I break down the latest evidence to give you practical, easy to digest strategies to train hard, recover faster, and perform at your best. You have so much potential, and I want to help you unlock that with the power of nutrition. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the podcast, Erin. Woo-hoo!
Yay! So excited to be here.
Yeah, it's just like Power Hour, except it's just you and me.
Yeah, that's kind of scary though.
Nah, we'll just shoot the breeze. So I wanted to get you on because honestly, everything you touch turns to gold. Like you're just having epic race after race after race. And I'm like, man, this chick races a lot. But every time you do it, you're like dancing on the top of the podium. I'm like, what is going on? What is the secret? So I want you to share some of that like secret sauce with the listeners today, because honestly, you are on fire.
Thanks. I'm happy to share. It's been so much fun, and talking about it will be fun too.
Yeah. So to give people a bit of a background, how long have you been doing triathlon for? Where do you live? How'd you fall into this crazy sport? All those sorts of things.
All that good stuff.
Yeah.
So this is my 11th year of triathlon. I started back when my son was actually getting into running. So I always kind of like to bike and swim, nothing competitive. But I kind of hated running, still kind of do. But with my So with my son wanting to do some running and he was young, I did a 5K because he wanted to do a 5K. And so just kind of like, hey, I'm doing all three sports now, why not? And so I did my first triathlon in 2012 and was addicted from go. Just loved every minute of it. The finish line feeling, the camaraderie, just everything about it. And honestly, the feeling of accomplishment was huge for me. So yeah, stuck with it for a lot of years. I've gotten to do some really cool races. I got to do Kona. I got to do World Championships last year. And getting into World Championships last year, there was a race here locally that I wanted to do. And I had a coach at the time that wouldn't let me. It was too close to World Championships. So I did it as an aqua bike, my first ever aqua bike. As the girl who hates running, I never wanted to do an aqua bike because I didn't feel like you'd get that finish line feeling. Well, when you win, it's still fun.
Totally.
So that last year was actually my first year doing aqua bike. And so that's what you're seeing. All of these race after race wins are all on these aqua bikes. So that's why it's a little easier to do so many races. But honestly, I did this many races last year with running too. I just wasn't always on the top of the podium.
Don't undersell yourself. You've still got to swim and bike. That's like my ultimate race format, swimming and cycling only and not having to run. So I feel like we get along for that reason too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I did Eagleman 70.3 2 weeks ago, which Ironman doesn't have an aqua bike option. Of course, you can relay if you've got a runner, but they don't have that aqua bike option. So I did have to run at that race, and I've done a couple of other triathlons this year. So it hasn't been only aqua bike, but it's been enough.
You didn't die running.
And I didn't die, and I had an 11-minute PR.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a good day.
So good. And so what are the sorts of things that you have been working on to be performing as well as you are at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like I said, I've been doing this for 11 years, but I'm still learning something every single year. And kind of the big learn this year has been my nutrition. And it's not like I was having like epic fails with nutrition in the past, but I definitely kind of segmented things a little bit, not treating my training and my everyday nutrition as kind of part of the big picture. And so being in the academy and learning that it does all kind of like all these puzzle pieces actually fit together. I've been able to train a lot stronger and sustain through race day, even when race day is every weekend and sometimes twice in a weekend. So yeah, it's really, this year, nutrition has been the biggest change.
Well, can you pinpoint the things that you think are making you perform better and backing up faster?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you obviously know what you're doing when you teach us recovery first, because I have always kind of, always trying to lose a pound or two, like most people, and always would not only not do recovery meals well, but also kind of not do recovery meals at all, because in my brain, I'm still burning calories from my workout. So I shouldn't put any calories in because that will burn some of the, the fat on my body. Yeah. So when I actually heard you on a podcast with TriDot talk about, like, if you're crashed in the afternoon after your long sessions, you're probably not doing something right. I was like, oh, wait, that's me. I'm the one that's dying after long sessions on the weekends. So, I mean, honestly, like I said, every piece of the puzzle has kind of fit in. But starting with recovery was the smartest, because I do think that was at least started that ball rolling in the right direction.
It's amazing how many people do suck at recovery. And I always talk about it in that way, like triathletes just suck at recovery, because it is a mindset shift to go from thinking that not eating is going to help you reach your goals, when really we need to flip that script altogether and make sure you're putting the right building blocks in your body at the right time to then drop some body fat, let it relax, let it actually do that afterburn in inverted commas that is, I don't know. I don't even know if it's a thing, but just making sure that you are actually putting the right things in your body so that you can get the most out of it. It's so important. And it's just a hard mindset shift when you come from a dieting culture, dieting mindset. Like, restriction is going to help you get there. And it's the complete opposite end of the spectrum that we need to be focusing on.
Yeah. And I think that it didn't take too many good recovery meals for me to see a difference. So then, of course, that got me excited to learn the next thing and the next thing. And being able to put it all together at Eagleman a couple of weeks ago was, I mean, I still have one more phase. I can't even imagine how much better it's going to get. But like, just I literally used every piece of the puzzle for this, of the first two phases for this race. And like I said, 11-minute PR, felt great the next day. Just, it was awesome.
Yeah. And running too. Woo!
And I ran, exactly. I ran the whole time. I only walked the aid stations. That is huge for me.
Yes. I love your goals that you set for yourself. Like, you have these different tiers. Can you walk me through your tiers of your goals and what you call them?
Yes, I am obsessed with goal setting. I used to be a teacher, so I even would help my kids set goals. But I have 3 goals, and they are a rock star goal, a super happy goal, and a happy goal. And the rock star goal is kind of what most people set for their goals. Maybe it's a PR, maybe it's, the best that they think they can do, but it's always kind of that stretch goal is the rock star goal. And then kind of the lowest one, the happy goal, is just like something I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to do. That way I'm celebrating no matter what. Like, I'm trying to set myself up always to celebrate something. So for some races, it's legitimately finish with a smile. Other races, I will put a time to that happy goal. And then honestly, super happy is just kind of somewhere in between, so that because I'm a data junkie. So when I'm watching my watch in a race, yes, total. All those Excel sheets, give it away a little. When I know I'm not going to hit that rock star goal, I don't want to give up. So that's what that super happy goal is for. So yeah, I've had a few super happies this year and lots of rock stars. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I love that methodology. And I think a lot of people could take that away and use it themselves, because we often set ourselves up to fail. Whereas you've got different tiers so that you're always feeling successful and like you're achieving something, which is why we do the sport anyway, right? We're age group athletes. We do it as part of our entire life, in addition to work, family, all those sorts of things. And then we set ourselves out and set our sights on something that maybe somebody's talked us into, or we think we should be able to, but something happens on the day or whatever it is. And so you end up disappointed, and it's this big vicious circle. Whereas if you set some tiers for yourself, then you're always going to be happy. And honestly, you should be happy anyway if you can piece together swimming, cycling, and running in your life.
Right.
A lot of people can't do that.
Right. Legitimately, finishing with a smile is something to be happy about, right? So yeah, that's why for the big races, that's often my happy goal, because that's what we should be.
Yeah, I love that. So you are just finishing up phase 2 of the Academy program and about to head into phase 3. So one of the things that I've loved to watch is your carb loading practice evolve over the last few months. And you've actually become like the go-to person in our community group for some ideas around that, because you share your plan in our community group, and people are like, oh, that looks really easy and that looks really achievable. So I could do that too. And thanks, Erin, for your help. What sort of things have you been learning about carbohydrate loading for yourself? And then how have you felt as you've practiced it multiple times over time?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest learning part of it was that it is so individualized, right? Like the way you carb load is probably not going to be anywhere near the way that I'm carb loading in terms of, how much we need and how long we need. And so I have always carb loaded with now that I know that that's not really what I was doing, but pancake breakfast for dinner the night before. Happy to say that that still fits into the bigger plan. But I was doing that regardless of the length of the race, right? Like sprint, Olympic, and 70.3, and even a couple of fulls that I've done. And so, yeah, I love that you teach us that, it's not just doubling. It's not just, it shouldn't be the same. And it's not just as simple as double every time. So once we learned carb loading at that week's master class, I, of course, was in the middle of my crazy race blocks. And so I was able to incrementally increase, and not only the amount, but the days, and get myself to what works for my body. And so I was able to test it out before the race on Eagleman a couple of weeks ago. And that's not even my most important race this year. So the fact that I was able to practice at that level and work on it a little bit more before the next one is awesome.
And did you feel physically different carb loading versus what you used to do?
So I think probably the place that it showed up the most was on that run. And the fact that I was able to actually run every step except for the aid stations. I did let myself walk, there was no bonking, and it was a super hot day. So to have the energy and not bonk at the end. Yeah. And like I said, I still felt great the next day. It wasn't even like I was beat up. Of course, I did my recovery right as well, but I wasn't beat up and just exhausted. I was actually more exhausted from my last vacation than I was my last race.
And you do race a lot, like you fit in a lot in your life. You seem to be racing every single weekend. In fact, you told me that you sacked your coach because they were like, you race too much. And you're like, nah, what are you talking about?
True. North Carolina's race season is kind of funny. We have a kind of early season. I come from Michigan, so way earlier than Michigan. But we have an early season, and then we have a summer break because it's so stinking hot. Yep. And then we have a fall season. So I actually just finished up that spring, early summer season. The Eagleman a couple of weeks ago was my last race for 2 months. So I've actually got a little bit of a break here. I'm able to periodize my meals correctly because it's a little lower training load right now. And then I'll ramp back up into the fall season starting in August.
On the hydration thing, like you're a relatively heavy sweater, I think, so far with the work that you've done in that space. So that's probably not a bad strategy for you.
Yeah. So that was the last masterclass before my training, or before my race. And so I dived in knowing this wasn't my big race, and I tested it basically on race day. I did a little bit of practice and one training session beforehand, but I did everything you talked about in the masterclass, and it was great. I did sweat a lot, but I was not dehydrated at the end of the race.
Okay, that's good. That might also be why you didn't feel absolutely trash the next day too, because you weren't in a dehydration hole.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people that I race with definitely complained about how much the heat affected them. And I was hot, don't get me wrong, but I survived it in a way that I didn't expect to.
Yeah, it's so good. Would you plan to do some hot races in that little gap? Would you travel for anything? Or do you think it's a good strategy for you going forwards to have a little bit of a break through the really hot months and come back after a adaptation phase in the middle of a block?
Yeah, I think so far it's worked out. So this is my third year in North Carolina. And so far it's worked out that I have actually taken the break and not traveled during that time. I actually wasn't originally planning on doing this August race, but I earned a spot at Nationals, so I'm going. So that was an add-on race, but it kind of depends. I try to do different 70.3s every year. So once I get to the point that the only ones left are during that middle hot phase, maybe I will, but it's kind of depends on when I do those races.
Yeah, it's so cool. So for 2024, to think about what year we're in, I've heard some whispers that you're coming to Australia What's on the cards for you in the next 12 to 24 months?
So once I realized that aquabike was something I'm pretty good at, I actually did a second race last year because here in the US, you only have to have 2 races to be ranked. And so I earned my spot onto Team USA for Worlds this September. So I'm going to Pontevedra, Spain this September. And then my plan for next year is to earn a spot at the long course Worlds in Brisbane. I should get there by
Townsville?
rankings. Yes,
in
Townsville.
Townsville?
You're in Brisbane. Yes,
I'm in
in
Brisbane.
Townsville. Yes. So yes, in Townsville. So that's August 2024, and for the long course. Now, I should earn it by rankings anyway, but I won't know for sure. The race for it is December 3rd of this year. So I won't know until the very end of the year if I earned it that way. And if I don't earn it that way, then I won't know until February. But I'm fully planning on going.
Okay, amazing. On the download, I know this is going on like a podcast. I'm going to try and organize a TNA day around the Sunny Coast 70.3, which is September. I don't know if the dates are released. So if you're going to come, you might need to like take a month off work and stay for a bit and maybe do Worlds and then do Sunny Coast 70.3.
If it's the beginning of September, it wouldn't have to be too long because I think Worlds is the end. So maybe we'll be there for at least a week or two because I'm not flying all the way over there just for a race.
No. And you want to come at least a week early, acclimatize, get over jet lag and all those sorts of things as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It'll be big.
Yeah, on the down low, probably not so much down low anymore. It's on the cards. It's penciled in.
Sounds amazing.
So what are you working on now? Like we've done a lot over 2 phases of the Academy program so far. Is there things that we've done that you want to kind of jump back into and dial in, or are you setting your sights further ahead to what we've got coming up in phase 3?
A little bit of both is the honest answer to that, because we don't actually do the 70.3 race nutrition until phase 3. So I'll be curious to see anything that's different than from what I did. Because I was in race phase pretty much all of phase 2 and a little bit of phase 1. I do want to go back and rewatch the periodization pieces because I've been eating mostly high plates. I need to remember what it's like to not be in race build phase for a minute.
Are you going to take an off season?
So, I mean, this is 2 months. That's almost an off season, right? So after my race in December to try to qualify for next year's Worlds, I will probably take the rest of that month off of running completely. I'll swim and bike because I love those things. And then maybe look at slowly building because we won't have races here until April. So that's kind of my off season, December through April.
Yeah. Not many triathletes have an off season, but it's something that is important to have that periodization with your training. So you have got some peaks and some troughs so that you can actually adapt.
Yeah.
Particularly for someone like you who just loves to race all the time.
It is the best part. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. I actually don't love racing. I'd much prefer the training. I don't know if that's weird, but I just love training with triathletes. Like we're crazy, like get a lot of work done in a short space of time. I love the training, but when it comes to racing, I don't love that as much as I love the training. It's weird.
It's interesting. I do have one friend that I train with in swim that she's the same way. And she's like, I just don't know how you train or race so much. I'm like, I don't know how you never race. Like we just totally don't get each other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Too much pressure for me. I think I set I need your 3-tier goals to not set my expectations too high.
Yeah, you should try that. And you should try an aquabike.
Oh, so they didn't exist when I was in my peak racing career. And I actually petitioned for Triathlon Australia to put them on the calendar and they did. And then I had to retire. But yeah, I think if I make a comeback, it'll be with aquabikes for sure.
Yeah, you can always come out of retirement.
I came out of retirement for a race and hit the podium with no training. So I know I've got it in me, but this body's not designed to run at the moment. But I will come out of retirement one day. Not anytime soon, but one day.
Maybe when your littles aren't so little. Like I'm very lucky my littles are taking
Big.
care of themselves now.
Yeah, they're big littles.
Yeah, they're not so little.
And so what's the grand plan for Erin? Like, what's the big goal for triathlon? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I know that's a pretty like first date question, but
So earning a spot on Team USA and aqua bikes is really great and all. But when I first went to US Nationals in, oh gosh, 2015, I think was the first year, I thought this is something I want to earn someday. Team USA for triathlon. So I think that's still kind of the big goal. I mean, I get the kit with my name on it, which is really all I really wanted. But to earn it in triathlon, I think would be like the ultimate rock star goal for me.
okay. And Kona again or anything like that?
No, kind of. I mean, it was a really amazing race. Don't get me wrong, but I had a little bit of the race blues after it. I actually took a year off after it because, I mean, gosh, it's the biggest race. What do you do now? So I'm glad I did it. It was amazing. I did it in a charity spot for Women for Tri and raised $27,000 for that organization.
Wow.
So it was a worthwhile experience, but I'm not in a hurry to get there again.
Yeah, fair enough. And, maybe they'll put a different sort of event on the cards or they'll do an aqua bike in Kona or something like that to, dangle the carrot a little bit more for you. There'll always be something for you.
I am definitely a carrot chaser. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And so do you have any advice for the triathletes listening for how to be so awesome at triathlon and nutrition and all the things?
I mean, like I said, it's 11 years and I'm still learning something every year. So I guess being open to learning something new, whether you're brand new, obviously everything feels like you're drinking out of a fire hose. But even after doing it for so many years, just being willing to learn something new. And yeah, for me, choosing to do nutrition this year, it was super smart and I'm glad I did it. And so wherever you are in your journey, you'll regret not doing it sooner is honestly the truth. Because 11 years in was a long time to wait to figure it out.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Like, because you've never worked on your nutrition with anyone before now, have you?
No.
No, that's crazy because it's what I think would be like one of the first things. I know I'm very biased in that, but you swim, you bike, you run, and then you've got to figure out your nutrition. But it honestly, like Lee has done 20 Ironmans or something, and she's never worked on her nutrition. But then there's always regret, like people didn't do it earlier. Like, why did I not do this earlier? Like, it could have been so much better earlier.
Right, for sure. And I mean, I've done 2 fulls. I thought about nutrition and I read about nutrition and I talked to all of the other triathletes about what they were doing. But like I said, I mean, one of the biggest learning things is that we are all going to we have different needs. And thankfully, you teach us how to figure out what our needs are through data, which I love.
You do write a good carb loading plan out. I've seen the numbers. I love it.
I love me a calculator and an Excel spreadsheet.
Yes, most people do, particularly triathletes, like love the numbers, want to do everything exactly right, make sure you're doing things perfectly for you. But when you don't know what you're doing, then you're kind of just winging it the whole time.
Right. Yeah. And when you race with a bunch of dudes, that's certainly not what's going to work best for us.
No, absolutely not. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story. Like, I just wanted to put you on a pedestal for a while because honestly, you are absolutely killing it. Every weekend, I'm like, oh my God, let's see how Erin's gone this weekend. Like, she's got all these photos hanging out on the podium. I think one race they didn't have a podium and you just made your own with humans, right?
Yes, one of my team members, we were also sad there was no podium. So he got on his hands and knees and I stood on his back. And I'm a large human. So for me to stand on his back, he was willing. So he let me and I did.
Yeah, you got to celebrate these things. Celebrate. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I love your 3-tier goals thing. I think everyone can walk away with just that from this episode. Set yourself some goals around what you want to achieve, but make them achievable and have a few different levels so that you don't set yourself up for failure, set yourself up for success, because then you'll just love the sport even more.
Yeah. It's just another reason to be excited at the end of a race.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in Australia in 2024.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
At the very least, I'm going to drive through Brisbane when I'm going from Townsville to Sydney. So we'll have to meet for coffee if nothing else.
Definitely. I'm down for that.
I knew you would be.
Anytime. I've actually got a coffee here right in front of me. It's going cold. So need to drink that.
Awesome.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or want to share with me what you've learnt, email me at podcast@dietitianapproved.com. You could also spread the word by leaving me a review and taking a screenshot of you listening to the show. Don't forget to tag me on social media at dietitian.approved so I can give you a shout out too. If you want to learn more about what we do, head to dietitianapproved.com. And if you want to learn more about the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program, head to dietitianapproved.com/academy. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to helping you smash it in the fourth leg. Nutrition!